Mostly, but they don't have very high expectations for today, do they?
Well, Natasha, certainly all eyes will be on the Finance Minister, Pravin Gordhan, to hear what he says. We know there's many expectations regarding, the expectations for the education sector, in particular with higher education and training. And, we're broadcasting live from Wits University. This is the centre of where the Fees Must Fall protest took place, as well as calls for free education. We know one of the main bones of contention for students is the scrapping of the historical debt, where students are saying that they were not able to register for the 2017 academic year because of fees that were owed. And we know that NSFAS has made significant strides to fund more than 300,000 needy students. But students are saying that the 1.5 billion rand allocation is not sufficient to deal with some of the pressing issues, including accommodation, transport needs, as well as textbooks and other pressing needs as well. We've also heard from the South African Students' Congress over the past few days that indicated that they're really watching what the Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan will say here today, and exactly how much more government will be coming to stretch its hand in terms of assistance for needy students who want to access higher education and training. And basically what SASCO said was that they would not hesitate to shut down universities if they don't get some of those issues addressed in this budget as well. Let's take a listen to what some of the SASCO leadership said a few days ago.
We will continue to heighten our struggle for free education, and I've said that though we'll have to somehow wait for that report of the Commission, we expect nothing but the pronunciation of free education.
The fact that NSFAS is an instrument used by the Department of Higher Education to ensure that poor students are not requested to pay for free education. But then you have NSFAS, which is literally falling apart and failing to carry out the resolutions that were taken by the Department of Higher Education. That's where our great concern is.
Well, let's chat to some of the Wits student leadership now to hear what their expectation is for the Minister's budget speech later on this afternoon. Busisiwe Siabe joins us from Wits University. Busisiwe, I'm sure there's great expectation from students this afternoon with regard to what the Finance Minister will have to say.
Yes, of course there is. I mean, from the fact that the President himself during the State of the Nation address did not address all of our concerns, not only as fees must fall, but as an entire body and movement of students and the unemployed youth, signifies the kind of expectations that we have. The fact that he spoke about a radical economic shift and changes, we're interested in finding out what those radical economic changes are. We want to find out exactly what of the GDP or how much of the GDP is going to be spent on higher education and education as an entirety. We're also very interested in hearing from the Minister himself as to how much more money is going to be put into the NSFAS fund, as we've already noted that 1.5 billion is simply not enough. It has not even begun to clear half of the students' historical debt, accommodation and other issues as well.
One of the pressing issues is historical debt, which students are saying should be scrapped. There are concerns over the registration for the 2017 academic year, where some are saying they simply haven't been able to gain access because of the historic debt. How would you want to see an allocation made to address some of those pressing issues? With regard also to accommodation, that's been one of the issues that really sprung up when the academic year started.
I mean, we're expecting the Minister to allocate a specific amount of money to just clearing historical debt and to just accommodating students that are registered under the NSFAS system. Even though we do find the NSFAS system to be problematic, we are trying ourselves to work with government in every way that we possibly can to make sure that students are able to come back and finish their academic courses at the university, at various institutions and at colleges as well. So what we're very interested in finding out is how much is he going to allocate and how much of that money is going to come directly into students, into clearing historical debt, into paying for registration, because even at Wits University and other institutions alone, students have not been able to register. Students do not have places to stay. They're staying in toilets, in libraries and so forth, and this is a major crisis. And one thing that we have maintained as Fees Must Fall is that we're willing to work with the government so far as the government is willing to work with us. We want to find out a lot more about how, the corporate tax is going to work in our favor as well. We want to hear how much of that money is going to be coming to higher education and to education. We want to hear as well about the export taxes that are being paid. We want to know how all of this that comes in together in improving and into solidifying the revenue of the country will come to work for us, not only as students, but also the unemployed youth, because government did mention the fact that they're employing different strategies on trying to employ a lot of the people that are not in institutions of higher learning. So we want to see essentially what our government has planned for us this year. And if they don't heed to the call of the students, we have no choice but to go back to the picket.
Would this be the last straw, depending on what the finance minister has to say? We've already seen statements from the South African Students' Congress indicating they were quite disappointed with the State of the Nation address, that nothing was said about higher education and training or was not satisfactory. So would this be the last straw, depending, of course, on what the finance minister has to say? Then will you then decide as student leadership on a way forward whether you'll take back to the streets?
I mean, at this point in time, we have tried to the best of our abilities to make sure that students are calm, because this crisis has been going on since the end of January and has gone through February altogether, which means that they've lost an entire month of the academic year because they can't register, because they don't have accommodation. We can only keep our masses patient for so long, and if the minister does not deliver what we expect and what we can consider to be some sort of a motion of good standing and of good faith from government, we have no choice but to return to the picket. And when we will return to the picket, the students will decide, and from what we've told and what we hear on the ground is that they're ready to return immediately.
Let's just delve a bit more into what would be satisfactory for students, because we must admit that there have been some strides that have been made, but students are saying that's not enough with regard to allocation, with regard to the increase of the number of needy students who are being funded, but there are many other avenues as well that students are saying they're not satisfied with. So what would be satisfactory to ensure that perhaps there is no disruption to the academic year so early into it?
Well, the obvious response would be free, quality, decolonized education. But we understand that this is a goal that we're willing to strive for and we're willing to work towards. And that's what we've been doing for 2 years. So at the moment, one thing that we're expecting and demanding as an immediate relief is the scrapping of historical debt. That needs to be dealt with immediately. We also need to have funding as well for students to get accommodation, not only in Johannesburg but across the country as well, because that is a major crisis. We need students to also get responses from NSFAS with regards to their applications, because many students applied as early as June last year and still haven't received responses. They can't access textbooks. So the allocation with regards to NSFAS has to be on par and has to be smoother, and students need to get a definite response. But more than anything, the minister needs to tell us approximately how much he's willing to dedicate to free, quality, decolonized education, and we can obviously take it from there.
Would you agree with the call by SASCO, for example? They're saying that they want the scrapping of the loans, and instead students should not pay back the money that is given to them to access quality higher education and training, but instead there should be some sort of fund where students are able to access any university that they want to without having to pay that money back.
I mean, that also speaks to partially the free decolonized education movement, right? To say that as students we can't firstly afford to pay back those loans even when we do leave university, because one thing that we've noted is that people with degrees still fall in the bracket of the unemployed in this country. There's a large constituency of people with qualifications who are unemployed, and we're simply unable to pay back the money. Also, the issue of black tax is something that we need to go back to. We need to go back to our communities. We need to go back to our homes. So we can simply not afford to pay back this money. And this is why we're asking for free, quality, decolonized education. To say that we want to learn, we've dedicated ourselves, and we are here, and we've registered, and we've attempted to do what we can through the measures that we've been given. The only thing we need government to do, and the corporate industry as well, is to meet us halfway, and meeting us halfway is making sure that we don't pay back these loans because we simply don't have the money.
Busisiwe Siabe, thank you very much for your time. The student leadership here at Wits University saying they'll be watching that delivery by the finance minister very closely. And it's not just the student leadership, but I think many students around the country at the various universities, those who are saying they're simply unable to afford quality education in South Africa when it comes to higher education and training. So we'll certainly wait to hear what the finance minister has to say and what the response will be from students shortly after.